Okay, everybody, I hope you had a great weekend. You really enjoyed conference. I thought it was awesome from beginning to end. And hopefully it gives us all a little bit of more hope and peace as things continue to get a little bit scary here in the US, especially. I hope everybody's staying safe and healthy. And as always, let me know if you have any questions and I'll do my best to help answer them. Okay, so for today, we're going to be talking about design principles. So on your calendar here, you can see design principles. I'm going to upload this lecture as soon as it's done. And then I want you to brainstorm for 10 minutes how you can apply some of the principles we're talking about today to your project. And then finally complete your progress report. And that's the goal for today. Okay, so I'm taking these principles from a PowerPoint, and this PowerPoint can be found on Canvas under Files, Multimodal Argument, Design Principles 101. So if you want to go back to the PowerPoint and look at it, feel free to do that. So here is the PowerPoint. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about are the principles design. The acronym is CRAP, C-R-A-P. I know it sounds terrible, but it's the easiest way to remember it. And the four principles are contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. So C-R-A-P. So we're going to start with contrast. Contrast is essentially creating difference. So something that has high contrast is very different from what's next to it. And you can use that with color. So the highest contrast colors will be black and white because they're opposite, right? Contrast can also be created with shape. So something that's large next to something small is going to have high contrast. Low contrast is where you're going to have less of a difference between things. So instead of black and white, maybe you have black and gray. That's a lower contrast. Same thing with size and shape. If two shapes are a similar size, they're low contrast instead of high contrast. The basic thing to remember with contrast is the higher the contrast, the more the things will stand out. So the things that you want people to look at first, you want to have high contrast. The things that are the most important should stand out so that people see them first. So here's an example from a Great Ideas competition poster from a couple years ago, and you can see that there's high contrast between the background color of blue and then the black where it says video and competition. There's also high contrast in the red color where there's Great Ideas, that red color pops out. And then also the size of the text. The Great Ideas video competition is the largest text. And so that's what we read first, and that's what we look at first. And then a good example of low contrast is going to be the background. So you have a blue background, but you can see that there's little kind of doodles or drawings on it with a slightly lighter color of blue. That would be a good example of low contrast. If those pictures were in white, they would compete with the actual competition information. And so if you keep it low contrast, it says in the background and makes the background more interesting without competing with the main information for the poster. Okay, here's another one that I wanted to show you to give you some ideas if you are planning to use images in your background, like pictures or images. It's very difficult to overlay text over images because certain places will have high contrast and certain places will have low contrast. So this poster is helpful because it puts what they'd call a screen. So there's that brown box that allows you to still see the image, but then also makes it easy to see the words at the same time. And so creating a screen like that can help to control contrast issues when you use an image in the background. This one I think is a really good example of contrast that uses both color and size to make its point. So imagine this is a poster that someone's walking past on campus. Posters on the wall. Think about how long you take to look at a poster. The average is probably 1 to 2 seconds that you have your audience for. And so it's important to do the highest contrast for the main topic. So you see that the subject, which is the moped auction, that's the biggest thing. And so anybody walking by who's interested in a moped, they're going to read on. People who are not interested in a moped are going to keep going. And then the second biggest thing is the date and the place. Okay. And then the third biggest thing, the smallest thing, I guess, is going to be the details. So the assumption is only people who are interested in actually getting a moped are going to read all the way through. So you want to start with and create the highest contrast for the things that are the most important, and then you get smaller or less contrast from there. Okay. The nice thing about this one also is that it has a simple color scheme. And the colors are actually even related to the topic, right? Traffic, and a lot of times you have yellow and black for that. Okay, this is an example of bad contrast or a bad use of contrast. If you look at the text on the left and the right, it actually sort of blends in with the background. And so it's really hard to read. And then the text on the other side is actually more high contrast. I would overall just avoid using fonts that have outline around them because it's harder to read. All right, the second concept is repetition. Okay, repetition is just what you would think. It's repeating the same principles throughout your document or throughout your design. So you can repeat colors, you can repeat fonts, you can repeat different shapes, you can repeat alignments, but basically what you want to make sure is that there's consistency throughout your design so that it's more attractive for the eye, okay? So here's an example of very bad repetition. You can see that there are 4 different fonts and they're all at a different angle. So there's straight across, there's like super curved, slightly curved. Some of them have, this top one has a shadow behind it. The only thing that's repeated is the oval shape for the pictures, but even those are not all the same size. So you want to make sure that the repetition is useful. I would suggest no more than 2 different fonts on something like a poster. Okay, maybe one font for big headings and then a smaller font for text. Here's one that does that. I'm not as thrilled about the color scheme, but in terms of using one font for main headings and then a second font for the subheadings, that works well. And then you also have repetition for the little icons on the left column. They're the same color and style. That helps people to remember, maybe if they aren't as fluent in English, they can kind of use those little icons to help guide them and remember the different principles that are being taught. Okay, here's another one that's not a good example. Remember when we used to have food fests? It seems like it's been 2003 since we've all been together. But anyway, this is a BYU Food Fest poster from 2003, and you can see again there's like 4 different fonts. The background changes color and it has flags in the background that's really distracting. You have all kinds of different foods, some in boxes, some not in boxes. And so there's no repetition in this, at least not consistent repetition in this particular poster. So don't turn in something like this. Here's one that I think is pretty cool, World Fest. You have the really large font for World Fest so that you know what it is. And then the color scheme, in terms of repetition, it stays black and white except for the world, which has all kinds of different colors and symbolizes diversity, right? Which is what the purpose of World Fest. So I think this one's pretty cool. And then here's from Culture Night last year. You can see that there's a black background and then all the images are consistent. They're very colorful. They are cut out without backgrounds and displayed sort of in a U shape underneath the title. And again, high contrast as well in this poster. All right, third design principle, alignment. Okay, so proper alignment in design means that every element is visually connected to another element. So basically, what you need to think about is everything should be aligned with something in your document. So you can see the examples here that you can have left alignment, center alignment, right alignment, and then top alignment, middle alignment, bottom alignment. That those are all different potential things to think about as you put your alignment together. So here's one that has a mirror alignment. So the left side is aligned with the right side. Okay. It also uses color to, this is about elections in the US. And so it's using red, white, and blue, which are the United States national colors. Okay. Here's one that is not very successful. You have just so many words, and there's this weird 3-column thing with weird triangles on the right. I think the color scheme of black and white is effective because sexual violence is a really serious topic, and so black and white is usually really good for serious topics. But the font is a little bit more fun, I think, or too fun or casual for this topic. And then you just have so much text here that it's not all aligned as well. Okay, it's just too much going on here. And I don't understand what the triangles have to do with this topic either. Okay, so I would probably suggest taking out these triangles entirely, making more space between each event that's going on. So you have the November 4th through 8th, November 11th through 15th, and then November 14th. You have these different events. Perhaps aligning each of these events as headings and making them clearer that there's different events going on here. Here's one where you have, again, a lack of contrast, but the alignment is also a little bit off. You have a center alignment for the image at the top, and then a right alignment, and then right and left alignment, and then going down, it's not consistent either. And when you look at the text in the middle, you don't know what's most important to look at first. It's all the same size, and so you're not sure what the details are that are most important for you to know if you're interested in joining the Gamer Club. Here's another one. In terms of alignment, if you look at the top half, everything is center aligned. And then on the bottom half, you just have random things thrown in without lining up with anything. You have open to the public and free that are not making any sense. And then you have Friday and the dates on the left aligned. And so what needs to happen in terms of alignment is that the bottom half needs to be completely redesigned. Okay, and then final one, proximity. So proximity allows for unity. And proximity essentially means how are you using space? And essentially what you want to do is the things that are related, the items and the ideas and the information that is related should go next to each other, in proximity to each other. And things that are not related should be separated. Okay, so it's all about space. So if you look at these are two revisions. So on the left side is the original version, and on the right side is the revised version. And you can see how the person who revised the information is using white space, or space where there is no writing or image, to combine information that is related to make it easier to read. Look how much easier it is and faster it is to find information on the right side as opposed to the left side. On the left side, all the information, the date, the time, the cost, the topics, they're all just one big block of text, and you have to sort of read through the whole thing to try and figure it out. On the right side, they're clustered into headings, into single topics with specific details for each topic underneath. And so you can read it much faster. So this is the power of using proximity or using white space. Our eyes are drawn away from the white space and to where there is information. And so using white space is a very good way to organize your design. So here's one from an old BYUH Salsa Orchestra performance. and you can see that your eyes are instantly drawn to the drums. And each drum has information for you kind of clustered in